Juicy Realm is an action shoot-'em-up roguelite from Space Can Games. Now you might draw comparisons to other games such as The Binding of Isaac and Enter the Gungeon. Now, these comparisons are fair to make, especially Enter the Gungeon, because it is a very similar looking game, but this is more unique in its own ways, and it's maybe aimed at a bit younger market as well, because the game is slightly easier, and I completed it in just over 2 hours, even though I was playing fairly lightly on normal modes, and then once I went to hard modes, that was not that much difficult increase. I mean, there were a few new enemies that were added to it that were a little more challenging, and also the enemies took more bullets to hit and the bullets seemed to move a bit faster, but for the most part the colourful nature and the gameplay, I would imagine it's definitely aimed at younger gamers, and that's pretty fair to assume because most of the gaming market is young, and I did start from a young age, like pre-10, so in single digit ages. And this is a fair entry into the market, so it's quite light, it's quite colourful. Will maybe encourage kids to eat more fruit and veg, because they'll gain associations from the very unusual fruits that are out there, because they do have a wide variety of different fruits and vegetables as enemies. Now it's set across 4 different stages, and the different stages do have their own aesthetics. Now some of them, the fog effects do tend to quite cause some problems, so desert stage and the snow in particular, they do fill up most of the screen and make it hard to see the enemies, but that's added difficulty to the problems. Now you can only hold 2 weapons at a time, so a lot of the game becomes a management of your bullets and making sure that you pick up the right guns at the right times, weighing whether you want to keep something with more damage or whether you want to swap it out for something that's actually got some bullets and try and risk going through it to try and find, or suffer the RNG Lord drops on bullets, and that's a weighing thing that you have to go through as you go through the game. Now, I'm going to compare it to The Binding of Isaac in other aspects, because in the start of The Binding of Isaac, when it was first released, there were very few enemy varieties, there were very few floor layouts, and the bosses were very, very narrow. And yes, you did have unlocks, which, if you completed the game a few times, you unlocked things like it got harder, and then a few more bosses got unlocked. And in this game, the bosses are fixed, so you got the same boss at the end of every floor always, so it's not as varied as it would be in some of these other games of the same nature. There's nothing wrong with that, but it does affect replayability on some levels when the bosses are very much set, and also the rooms that you can go in through the roguelike nature of RNG. When you've got the same rooms, because they have to be there because of the lore, because there are lore drops in the rooms to read, even though it's not really that important because it's a short message to read this, and that can maybe be dropped randomly in every single room and add a bit more room variety and a bit more replayability. But again, it's a fairly cheap game, so it's sub £8, so depending on your regional variances, it's a fairly cheap game, so it's not fair to really judge it based on the price range when it is a reasonable price value and a fun game, and you will get a few hours of gameplay out of it. There is replayability with the 4 different characters that are currently there, and there are unlocks that seem to be there that aren't really signposted in games like Isaac. It will say you've unlocked this. It won't necessarily say how many unlocks you've got left, but in this I noticed that once you get the unlocks, you just sort of have to assume that they're there. You don't really tend to notice them. The first boss, where you free the egg guy, he kind of talks to you, and then the second boss, when you free someone else, again, that's for the unlocks, for the additional powers and the augments that you can buy, like extra crit chance and extra life and extra heals and extra gold pickups. Depending on what you want to do and what your balance is, you can get a choice of 2 things, and if you got the golds, you can do it. You can put gold away in a piggy bank, but if you destroy the piggy bank on any run, you can't then deposit anymore. But it's a good way to balance some stuff so that you can have some money to spend in future runs. But in that aspect, you could also just add the fact that you might have a store up and a saving run like CSGO. You save your money, you put it away, and then in a future run you have that extra money there ready to go to buy a winning run, essentially, in a winning round. So there are these balancing aspects that maybe need fixing. If they could add a little bit more enemy variety as well, that would definitely change it for me, because at present there are just the same old enemies, and it does feel a bit like Just a few more different variations, maybe elite enemies and a few different things. But again, it's maybe aimed at a younger market and not really being a true hardcore shoot 'em up action roguelite that you might be looking for. But, you know, for a younger entry into the market and a light entry into it, it's a pretty fun game and it's definitely a fun experience and it's very colourful. The bosses are very varied. I do feel like the end maybe could use a little work. It's like you killed the last boss, the spider boss, and then all of a sudden you go off and there's some text that's too quick to read. And then that's it, game over. You know, you've won the run, and you know it's the right sort of length. It's about an hour-long run, so that is the right sort of thing for if they wanted to introduce dailies and daily challenges where there's set pickups, set things, and you know less RNG and challenges and leaderboards. But at that stage, you know, they might want to think about adding some room variety and some enemy variety so that they do feel different. Because otherwise, it just becomes a matter of can you get the good guns with the 3 power so you've got the most bullets and enough pickups of bullets to be able to get through to the end, keeping the good guns that melt the bosses in one cycle. Saying all this though, it's a fun game and it's definitely recommended. So if you want a game like this, I would definitely recommend it. It's only £8 or less than, it's about £7.14. And with Steam summer sales and various things like that, it's probably going to go even cheaper. So definitely go check it out for yourself. This was Juicy Realm, available now.